The SaltDipped podcast, taking life, business, and adventure with just a pinch of salt. Welcome back to the next version podcast episode of SaltDipped. I'm not sure what to call it today, apparently. Cannot believe that we are already in April. Whoop, there goes the microphone. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Welcome back to the next episode of SaltDipped. I've really enjoyed starting this journey with all of you in this year. It's been amazing. I mean, can you believe it's April already? We've got Easter behind our backs, and now we start the long slog towards winter here in South Africa. But it's all good. It's actually my favorite time of year right now for surfing. It's absolutely amazing. The conditions tend to be really lovely at this time of the year. They're more likely to be lovely, let's put it that way. And it's because the wind drops and your glassiness of the ocean is there. So you're not necessarily having to compete with a lot of wind, which can be pushing you. Like your body acts as a sail when you're on a surfboard. So, it could be pushing you down the beach, and then you've got to keep coming back to the peak, which is that nice little high bit of the wave, right? That does the first bit of breaking. That's where surfers want to be. They want to be catching waves. So it's important to know where those are and to not have to be wasting energy, really, because it is tiring. It's a full body workout as it is. But what else do I love about it? Oh, every now and again, it's really stunning and foggy in the morning as well. There's just something really beautiful about being in the water when it's overcast or a bit foggy and it's quiet. It's a space where your brain just does, become silent, because number one, you need to be aware of what you're doing. You can get very badly hurt if you're not watching your environment and your surroundings, and accidents happen very, very quickly. And just because, let's say some small waves are coming in, it doesn't mean that suddenly a bigger set isn't going to roll around and catch you unawares. So very important that we stay aware. There's something that I found to be really interesting with some surf sessions recently, and I think that this is so true of anything in life, and that's why I want to share it in today's podcast. Let me start with where I found this. That's important. So I was spending some time on Instagram. I do definitely have a bit of an Instagram scrolling addiction. That's something I want to work on. And the irony of that is sometimes I can go days without touching it, but when I do, I could easily spend 2 or 3 hours disappearing down real wormholes. So I ended up with this reel that I was watching, and this lady was saying, well, she was quoting what a lot of people say about things that don't work, like meditation doesn't work, self-talk doesn't work, breathing doesn't work, all of that. And then she was showcasing athletes against each statement. So, meditation doesn't work. And there's this NBA player sitting beside the court, and it's chaos around him, right? I mean, you've got the crowd going nuts. You can hear the squeaking on the court, so the game is in motion. And he's just sitting there with his eyes closed, stock still, just taking a moment. And it was such a lovely one to also go, you can meditate wherever you are. You can just take that moment and go, okay, brain, relax, calm, control. So that was really good. And then the breathing one was lovely because it was a series of a whole load of athletes, like Olympic based. Think about Olympics, and actually think about football players about to score a goal just before you've got to do something, right? It's focus, focus, focus. That's the kind of, okay, let me go and do my long jump. Okay, let me score this penalty, whatever it was. And it was amazing seeing that and going, okay, there we go. It's just refocused all of the effort, all the focus. And the one I want to talk about was the positive thoughts one. And it was a snap of Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, I do want to say, I'm not a huge Ronaldo fan. If I had to choose between him and Messi, Messi's my man. That's not to say that he hasn't done absolutely amazing things, Ronaldo, now. In himself, I think there is a lot of good he has done in the world, and watching a group of 8-year-olds grow up, because that's the age my son's at, and seeing how many of them adore him. He is a role model, which is good. And I give him credit for this as well. He was standing there and he must have been about to shoot a penalty or something. And I just love how he was talking to himself. So the subtitles were like, just shoot the goal, shoot the goal. What you do is you shoot goals. And I really love that, because it wasn't that amping up. It wasn't that, okay, now you've got to be better than you're feeling right now, which sometimes we do have to do for ourselves to get through the task, get through the day, maybe even sometimes to get through the week, just depending on what's going on. And I also really love that it was just a statement. He was calling himself to come back to who he already is. Now, you don't need any more power than that if you just want to recognize what it is that you can do. A couple of weeks ago, we're on the beach. We're getting ready to go into the water. It was a group of ladies. We have some laughs, we make some jokes. I'm probably one of the youngest in the group, like maybe by only a couple of years, but just to give you sort of an age demographic. So we're working with ladies who are sort of from their mid 30s and up, and I mean and up. It's impressive. Some of the ladies that have decided to start surfing later in life. Like I take my hats off to them. I really do. I'm so glad I started now. But yeah, so we're standing and we're talking. We're having a good giggle, and I mentioned this thing because some of the laughing and some of the giggling was a bit about the conditions are looking rough today, and oh, I'm not so sure I'm up for this, and oh, this is feeling a bit sore. So I mentioned this positive self-talk from Ronaldo, and everyone was a bit like, okay, yeah, that's lovely. And we headed out into the water. Now, I was having a session where it just felt like I couldn't get up on the board. It felt like my legs didn't want to work with me. So I was going, oh, maybe I haven't been doing enough other exercise. Have I been, focusing on my fitness? Maybe not. And then I sort of just went, okay, we're going to come out of that space. This is, if I had to compare myself to where I was last year, this time when I was surfing, what would I be thinking? Now, last year, beginning of 2025, was the first time I really started hitting out. And when I went out to Hawaii, I ended up in that surfing situation without really having practiced it at all. And that was part of why when I arrived there and looked at the coastline and realized that it was all coral, and I wasn't going to be able to stand on sand and just catch some little waves. I had a little moment because I'd been training for a whole year. I mean, Hawaii was the reason I picked up surfing. I was going to Hawaii. I had to be able to surf, right? So that had been my only backline experience was over this coral in Waikiki, on Waikiki Beach, because I had to, because that was the only way I was going to get to surf there. And now we start practicing it, right? So I was like, last year, I'm like, okay, so things that wasn't so good at: balancing on the board, feeling stable on the board. My breath work was all over the place. I was always out of breath. My paddling was terrible, and it felt like I had to put in 5 times the amount of effort that everybody else did. To name a few, And I think that those were very much the ones that I did repeat to myself. I was like, you know what, last year, this time, you felt uncomfortable on the board when you were just paddling and lying in the water, and you felt like you were going to fall off the whole time. Whereas now I feel very centered on my board, and I feel at peace and at calm with it. Breathing. I mean, I remember being very like out of breath and having to remind myself to breathe deeper. And like as I'm paddling, just one breath, one stroke. That was the focus. Whereas now I barely think about my breathing. Every now and again, I need to just tap back into it and go, right, how are we going to do this and do this better? And my paddling, I mean, I think that that's been one of my biggest improvements. And paddling is 90% of surfing. So it's not the thing that you're prepared for when you start learning and you're catching broken waves or foamies on the beach. But because that's just you walk out, you get to knee height, you catch some waves, and you move on with your life, kind of a thing. But paddling is really 90% of the time that you spend in the water. And and if you're not paddling, you are maybe trying to catch a wave and maybe you're standing. I mean, it is a sport that gives you 5 12-second, if you're decent enough to stay up long enough, missions to get better at your sport in an hour. So it is challenging from that perspective, and really does add a level on there. So I was having this little moment and just like celebrating, these wins, this progression, because it is progression. And I kid you not, my next wave, I stood up and I did all the things I was supposed to do. I so popped up, so caught the wave, number one, by myself. The coach was nowhere close to me. I was actually paddling with a group of other ladies, and he was helping out somebody who was new to the backline because she hadn't been out there before and was struggling with all the things I just mentioned, right? And a lot of paddling, and it's exhausting. Two of the other girls had gone, oh, let me catch this one, let me catch this one. And I turned, I'm like, oh, there's one here, let me give it a try. So I caught it 100% by myself, not being pushed, caught it to the side, which is what you want to do, right? You don't want to go all the way down the front towards the beach, because that's when you get barreled. And then also you're not going to get to look like Kelly Slater going down the green part of the wave and potentially catching a barrel, right? Because that's what we want to be working towards, and doing tricks on the side of an unbroken wave. That is the goal. That is what we're chasing. And it was lovely. It was so lovely. And the waves after that were also pretty good. That one in particular stands out because it was the break between, "Oh, this doesn't feel like it's working. I know this. Why does my body feel like it's not working with me?" And then suddenly it just changed. That was just mindset. That was just congratulating myself on the things that I have gotten to be able to do better. And I think that what's stunning about that is if we think about our mental space in most places, especially where we might be struggling with something, we often forget to go in and go, okay, but what do I do well? We are so good at criticizing ourselves and just reminding ourselves of why it's not working, why it's not going anywhere right now. But at the end of the day, we are always progressing and we are always developing, and we should be giving ourselves a lot of kudos. And it's coming back to that Ronaldo moment, right? Where he's just going, "This is what I do. This is it." I didn't even find that arrogant. It was just, that is just accepting who you are and claiming it. And by doing that, you take a lot of power into your next moments, and you're able to go and do something great. So challenge to you is where you might be getting stuck, if it's your sport, if it's at home, if it's in a relationship, if it's in business, go and have a look at it and just talk to yourself about that experience in a way, not necessarily even like you would talk to a friend about it. I mean, sometimes I think having all those comparison points, they're only going to be happening in your head. You know where you were at. You know what you've been working towards. You know what you were really struggling with. Everybody else can assume or guess, and maybe you've told them once or twice. So go and have that conversation with yourself, and just congratulate yourself on the small shifts and momentum that you have made, because that is what makes the world of difference. And you'll find that your performance really increases because of that. I mean, I found it in that surfing environment. I have now been testing it a little bit more. I mean, it is always, oh, talk nicely to yourself, but just rather than being like, "All right, you've got this. Yes, today is going to be hard. You can do it." It's rather coming from an approach of you make sales, you help people, you solve their problems, you are able to help connect them with more business. You can see the gaps in their thinking, state the fact, state the things that you are good at, and that's going to help you move all the more forward. Now, I'm very excited for you to witness the next podcast. Just so you know, I am going to be interviewing Johannes Swanepoel, who is the visual intelligence engineer. He's fantastic at what he does. He's a creative graphic design, forward-thinking individual, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about his business journey. And that will be coming out towards the end of April. And also soon we will be announcing our next event, and we'd love to see some people there. We had a fantastic event in Cape Town for Growth. Actually, I did this with Annie Olafue from Storied. I interviewed her on a podcast not so long ago. So if you want to go catch up on who she is, go and have a look. And we'll be sharing more about potential workshops together again going forward. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. Thank you so much for subscribing, listening in. Remember to sign up for our newsletter or subscribe to the YouTube channel to make sure that you do not miss any of my podcasts. And looking forward to chatting again soon.